Hello. Today, we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts of DIY music videos in 1 minute or less.
Actually, it's going to be a few minutes. I'm sorry.
All right, so a lot of you probably know that I'm someone that does 1,000 different fucking things, playing in bands, podcasts, vlogs, live streams, blah, blah, blah. Recently, on a live stream that I do on Sundays, sometimes, called You Asked For It, where I play and review local music submissions via Twitch, I did a music video only stream. And instead of breaking down the mixes of the songs and kind of critiquing the songs, it was a lot more focused on critiquing the videos. And watching this, I kind of had a bit of a revelation about a lot of common things that, people operating on an underground or DIY level kind of seem to mess up when it comes to doing their own videos. There's some pretty common threads that I think we can talk about today. And granted, I'm not fucking Steven Spielberg by any means, but over the past decade, I've shot probably close to 50 music videos between my projects and other people's projects and things like that. I've done a lot of videos, and I'm not saying that they're great. I'm just saying I've fucked up a lot of things and I've learned a good bit. So maybe you could take some advice from me, get some ideas in your head, and hopefully this is helpful. I'm not making this video to say that I know what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just going to share some of my personal experiences with things that I've done wrong. So hopefully if you're someone in a band looking to shoot your own videos, or if you are somebody just getting into filming and we want to do work with bands, this is just some shit that I'm going to throw out there to hopefully make your lives a little bit easier in terms of getting projects done. Because one of the biggest hurdles in terms of a band getting a music video done is literally just fucking doing it. I know that there are, a lot of barriers to entry when it comes to even getting a music video filmed, but the access to technology is so wild these days, and you can do a video a lot easier than you think. Every cell phone has a camera that is fully capable of shooting very clean footage, and with programs like DaVinci Resolve, which is a free fucking download, there's really no reason not to have good quality content out there for your band. It's just a matter of having the drive to do it. And sometimes, there's a creativity barrier. People don't know, what should they do when it comes to a video. And this is where the most common and the first thing that I'm going to bring up comes into play. Nobody really wants to see your home video montage. It's a classic trope. The large majority of the videos that I actually saw during my live stream that people would send in were basically home video montages. And if you're putting a video together, I guess just for yourselves and just for the bands and your small group of friends, then maybe it's entertaining. But if the goal for filming a video, or in a business sense, a promotional video, is to promote the band to people that don't know you outside of that circle, I'm sorry, but nobody gives a fuck about your home video montage. I understand that it's easy. It's an easy thing to do because a lot of people have various fucking clips already laying around from here and there, and you could put it together, throw in some clips of you playing live shows, and you have a video. Yes, technically you do. And I suppose it's better than nothing. It's better to have a video than no video, because these days content is king. It doesn't really matter what it is as long as you have something. But ask yourself, what is the goal of having the video in the first place? I already said, if it is to just have something to share with friends and family, and you're not trying to get it pushed out to different blogs or maybe go viral or whatever, you're not trying to use this as a platform to help elevate the band any further, then the home video thing's fine. But if you're trying to get some people to give a shit about your band that don't already know you, the home video thing is like 99% probably not the way to go. Unless like your home video shit is some wild stuff. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that it's totally impossible for something to blow up. Like say you have like some, you know, early 2000s era Jackass style, like home video, ridiculous montage of just like insane shit happening. That might work for you for sure. But a lot of the times with these home video montage video things, you know, it's just like people fucking around. It's like, who are these people on the screen? Are these people in the band? Are these people not in the band? They're just like sitting around and fucking with each other. And it's like, there's no connection to like the music or what it is unless you're like a part of that circle. The reason why I'm spending so much time just like talking about this one thing is just because like I see so many fucking people do it, and I've done it. I've been in bands that have done it. So I totally understand, you know, how easy it is to just take all of this shit that you've had laying around for a while and put something together and like, well, we have a video. But, you know, as an outsider, anytime I see a video like that, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about this. I just don't care. Even a lot of times, like if it's my friends, you know, I know it's kind of cold, but it's just like, I don't fucking care about this. Like, I want to see you, if this is a music video, like I want to see y'all play or like get creative, do some kind of a story, whatever. Like, I just don't give a fuck about seeing like your home video shit. I don't. So then it makes me think, you know, if I act that way when I see other people's shit, how do people think when they see my shit if I were to do that? So that's where I'm coming from in terms of that. Let's move on. So now that I've kind of harped on something that you shouldn't do for a while, let's talk about something that you should do. If your goal is to make a video that is going to maybe attract new people to your band, maybe get some hype, a little bit of virality, however the fuck you pronounce that word, you gotta focus on what is engaging content, and how are you going to keep people interested in your video? Because like, it's one thing if the song is dope. If the video's trash, people aren't going to keep watching, and then as a result, they're not going to hear the song, which is a big problem with those home video things. Like, the song could be fucking awesome, but if the video's boring, people are going to click off of it a lot faster than you can realize. So you got to figure out a way to make the content engaging. Think about like, what is it about videos that you've liked before? What is it about those videos that you like? You know, oh, like, fuck, this band had like really cool lighting. They're in a really cool location, or there's this really cool story element. I'm not saying like rip off other people, but let's be real. If you are a songwriter, you've been inspired by some other music at some point in time. So just tap into that same sort of inspiration, but from a visual standpoint. And if you've never thought about it in that way, well, now's a good time to start. If you want to make a music video, chances are it's because you saw somebody else's music video that was fucking dope, and you were like, yo, I want to make a fucking music video like that. Okay, well, what did they do? What did that music video do successfully that caught your attention? Take those notes of the things that you like and the things that you think are cool, and then from there, you can figure out what you need to do to achieve those goals. And I can't get into that because that's just a Pandora's box of possibilities that we can't get into, and I'm trying to keep this relatively simple. I'm just saying it's really, really helpful if you don't know what to do for a video to just get some inspiration from other things that you've seen work. Don't rip them off. Inspiration. There's a difference. The next thing that I want to talk about is something that I touched on a little bit ago, and that is, why do you want to make this video? Is this something that you're making to generate buzz for the band, or is this something that you want to do just to do it? Because while videos do help, and while I think having more content is better than having no content, having a video isn't necessary, and it's not going to really help anything if you don't care. Like, if you're just doing something just to do it, you're more than welcome to do whatever the hell you want to do with your time. But you have to realize that if you're putting that kind of energy into the project from the start, don't expect a ton of results from it. If it just seems like something was thrown together and there's nothing that's really engaging about it, you're wasting your time, you're wasting other people's time. And in the long run, that might actually be worse for your band than having nothing at all. Like, it's better to put out nothing than to put out garbage. So keep that in mind, I would say, when you're making these decisions about things that you're going to put out that are attached to the band and your brand. Not to sound like too businessy, but that's just really what it is. It's all about like branding and optics when you're getting into this video game, and like you have to start operating and thinking on a different level. A lot of bands don't really care much for like the visual representation of their band. They're not into the branding aspect of things, and that's totally cool. That's why I would say that music videos aren't really necessary. If you're the type of band that doesn't really give a fuck about presenting yourselves visually in a unique way. If you're more of a band that's just focused on songwriting and music and performance and things like that, either get somebody to shoot like a really cool performance video of you guys, like a live video. That would probably be better in the long run and easier to accomplish than trying to do some overproduced cool music video. If that's not the kind of band you are, there's no really right or wrong way to approach that. So I think it's really important at the beginning just to ask yourself, like, why are we doing this music video? Who is this music video for? And what are we hoping to accomplish once we have this music video done? Because what works for one band isn't going to work for another band, as everything is different, and it's figure that out before we even open up the door. I've seen technically successful, cool videos just not be like successful on any sort of social platforms. YouTube and other places where people host music videos and share them in the hopes that they will, pick up some steam. These are notoriously hard platforms to get fucking noticed on. So, it's one thing to film a dope video. It's one thing to record a good song. It's like, just be prepared to put in the work afterwards. Like, if you're gonna put in a lot of fucking time and energy and effort into making a cool video, be prepared to work to get people to see it. Just because you have this fucking crazy dope production doesn't mean that people are just gonna stumble across it. You gotta be prepared to promote that shit, and you gotta be prepared, honestly, probably to put a little bit of money into this if you want to get it to a certain level, which I guess that's the next thing to talk about is money. You don't have to spend a ton of money to make a successful music video at all, especially if you go the DIY route. But if you do plan on hiring a team of people to come in and shoot, I think the thing that fucks up a lot of people is that sometimes filming a music video for one song can cost 3 times as much as it cost you to record your whole band's album. And I think this is just because a lot of people that work in like the film and television entertainment, there's just more money in that environment than in music. I think that most audio engineers and people that work in studios, their work is like criminally undervalued. And a lot of times these people charge, next to nothing to record. But whenever you tap into this music video world, depending on the level of production that you're getting, you have to understand that you're stepping outside of the music industry to some degree. And it's a whole different game in terms of the way people handle scheduling things, the way people talk about things, and the way people treat and expect to be paid. It's just a different world. So, having a budget for a good music video can be very prohibitive for a lot of underground bands, which I think, leans people towards like either not doing anything at all or doing something on a DIY scale. Here's the thing. If you're really looking to get a top-notch, professionally done music video and you have no interest in time in learning how to do this stuff yourself, then be prepared to spend a good chunk of money on this. But if you are confident in the product and you're trying to do something that's going to elevate the band, gain more eyeballs, get more streams, album sales, people coming out to shows, blah, 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 then you're making an investment with that money that hopefully will get returned. I think that money is something that a lot of bands are notoriously bad at. With that being said, just keep in mind that if you're going to spend a couple thousand, few thousand, even maybe sometimes dollars on a single music video, make sure that that video fucking slaps. Make sure that the song fucking slaps and that you're putting your all into it. Because if you do, you can easily make that money back as a band off of the promotion of that video. If you're using it to sell something, if you're using it to advertise your fucking shit, you will get that money back. But a lot of people don't always see things that way. And again, that's only for people whose bands are operating on that level or who are like interested in really taking it to another fucking place. But you don't have to spend all that money on a music video. There's different things that you can do with that money. If you have the money to invest into a music video, but you also have the interest of learning how to shoot videos or just create more content in general, I would suggest just investing that money in your own equipment. You know, if you have a couple $1,000s to spend on a music video, you can buy yourself a pretty nice fucking camera and some lighting equipment and be ready to fucking go. I mean, there's obviously a learning curve with learning how to shoot the videos, do your lighting, editing, blah, 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 blah. This isn't a video of like how to make music videos. I'm just saying that like if you have the passion to do that, that is an option. You could easily do that. But if you don't have the money or you don't want to invest that money in new gear, you can definitely utilize stuff that you have already laying around. Most people have a camera in their pocket at all times that is fully capable of shooting very decent footage. But there are some issues with using a cell phone to shoot a music video, and let's talk about that right now. If you are somebody that decides you're going to use a cell phone to shoot a music video, one of the biggest issues that I've come across when using a cell phone for music videos or for capturing live footage that I plan on editing later, or any footage in general, is the frame rate or the FPS. For those of you that aren't savvy to this sort of shit, it's the frames per second. The frame rate is how many frames are captured in a second to create the video. Right now, the video that you're looking at is shot in 24 frames per second, or more accurately, 23.98 FPS. But the thing that I've found is like whenever you import a lot of cell phone footage, there's like a weird variable to it where like it says that you're shooting at 30, but once you import it into your project, it's actually shot at like 27.62, and then maybe another clip's at like 29 something, and then one will be at like 31. They're like close to 30, but not quite right. And where this starts to become an issue is in terms of like syncing up your audio and things like that, because audio and frame rate, they're recorded on different timelines. So you can have a lot of issues with syncing your visuals to your audio when using cell phone footage. It's not impossible, but it does require a lot more work in post to edit than if you just had good equipment that's able to capture at a steady frame rate. It's strange. It's like, I guess the thing that is interesting about using cheap equipment is that you kind of have to have more of a knowledge of post-production to like make the footage work. Whereas if you have nicer equipment, you don't need to do as much in post, so it's a little bit easier to edit. It's a funny thing, those two worlds. But honestly, working with cheap equipment for as long as I did is what made me a strong editor. I had to figure out workarounds for all of this bullshit to make successful projects because of my limited technology at the time. So shooting videos on cell phones is not impossible. Just make sure that if you are doing that you aren't using multiple cell phones unless you are very well aware of the settings in the cell phone. Because if you have one camera shooting at a certain frame rate and another shooting at a different frame rate, when you go to import all that stuff, it's going to look a little wonky. And also the sensors and lenses in different cell phone cameras, you're just going to get drastically different looking picture, and sometimes you could also get drastically different aspect ratios. So for those of you that don't know what an aspect ratio is like the size of the frame that you're looking at. Right now I'll like squeeze the video into some different aspect ratios, and another common thing that I see that is kind of fucked up on DIY music videos, there will be like a dramatic switch in aspect ratios. Sometimes this can stylistically work in different ways, but a lot of the time when I see people doing different aspect ratios in videos, especially in DIY videos, it's most likely because multiple cameras were used while shooting the video. They basically just gathered everything up that they could to shoot as much as they can, and then you start editing it and it's all different. Like there's different sizes and shapes and colors, and it's just like it's a fucking mess. Granted, if you're in post-production, if you understand what you're doing, you can like color grade things to look better. You can kind of like crop in and pull out to make everything kind of fit the same aspect ratio, but sometimes people's heads can get cut off or things like that. You have to know a lot about what you're doing in order to use the cheap equipment efficiently, is what I am saying. It's not impossible, but you got to be prepared for it. So if you do plan to shoot a music video on a cell phone, try to stick to only one phone, unless like maybe a couple of your homies all have the same phone. I would definitely recommend not using like a GoPro or anything like that unless you're going to do the whole video with GoPros, because that's the other thing too, is like your depth of field and like the way like the GoPro kind of will do the fisheye sort of thing. That's a whole different look than what another camera might give you. So unless you have some sort of stylistic way to jump back and forth between those two different shots, the video is going to look weird and it's not going to look good. So what am I saying here? I guess in a DIY aspect, sort of a less is more approach could sometimes be better in the long run. It's really easy to over edit a music video, especially when you're starting out. I would avoid using programs such as like an iMovie or anything like that, because a lot of times when people like edit videos in iMovie, you can tell because they use the stock transitions, they'll use stock text overlays, and all of these things that it just kind of, not to sound like a turd, but it just looks cheap. Don't get sucked into like all of the stock filters and transitions and text overlays that like an iMovie can give you. Because I think we've all seen 1,000 videos where, right away you're like, oh, they did this in iMovie. And I guess, hey, it's better than nothing. But also when you have programs like DaVinci Resolve that are 100% free to download, unless you have some very specific reasoning for wanting to do different filters and specific transitions and shit like that, the most successful videos tend to be the ones that, just have a very simple aesthetic when it comes to editing. And a lot of it, you'd be surprised. I think it's really easy to get carried away with like cross dissolves or color filters or, like old movie camera looking things. And especially if you're shooting on cheap cameras, it's really easy to put like the movie, like old VHS grain effect on top of it. And it kind of makes it look like the shitty footage has a purpose. I've definitely been guilty of that. I still probably use VHS overlays a little bit too much these days, but I would definitely say that you don't need to do that. A lot of the times, if you're shooting on if you're shooting on a cell phone, see if you could shoot in 24 frames per second. You're looking at 24 frames per second now, and I think this tends to look the most professional. This is like, a standard film sort of frame rate that people use. 30 frames per second, 30 FPS tends to make everything look like a TV show. 30 frames per second is really weird. And then 60 frames per second, we all know, just makes things look hyper real, which is maybe good for like gaming or good for like vlogging or something like that, or like landscape footage. But for like a music video, I don't really think you want to shoot in a frame rate that high. Personally, it's going to make everything look really weird. The only time that I would shoot in super high frame rates is if you're planning on doing slow motion stuff, but that's a conversation for an entirely different video. If you're curious about shooting slow motion footage, there's other people way more qualified on the internet that have made videos about that you can look into. My phone here is a Galaxy Note 10 Plus, and in my video settings, I only have 30 frames and 60 frames per second to work with when shooting. And that's, an issue because it just makes things look weird. But if you do decide to use it, like, you can make it work. Just because it's going to look a little weird, chances are people aren't going to notice it, really. But it's a type of thing where if you shot the same music video side by side with two different cameras, one at 30 frames per second and one at 24, you would notice a significant difference that just makes the 30 frames per second one look a little weird. But if all you have to work with is a fucking cell phone, by all means, work with it. Just make sure that if you're using multiple cell phones, that everything is shooting at the same frame rates, in the same aspect ratios, and in like the same color effects. If there's any sort of like auto things on your camera, like auto HDR or auto coloring effects, I would always suggest turning all of that shit off. Try to get the flattest profiles from anything that you're using, because you can always adjust that stuff while you're editing to clean up the footage and make it look a little better. But if you shoot your footage with all of those like high contrast and different, color grading effects like baked into your footage, you're not going to be able to fix that. And, maybe you're happy with the way it looks, but if you want to change it at all, less is more when you're shooting. Trust me. Don't underestimate the power of lighting either. If you're going to be doing a DIY video, don't underestimate how important lighting is. A lot of camera sensors aren't really equipped to work in low light. There are ways to make things look dark, but it still needs to be lit properly. That's a different conversation as well. All I'm trying to say is don't underestimate the value in lighting. You could get lighting, you can get some soft boxes or some LED lights like I have on me right now. They're not expensive. I mean, it's not free, so you do need to invest in this stuff, but they do make a world of difference. Color temperature, for those of you that don't know, is what like makes a room look warm or cool. I can do some like color temperature adjustments here so you can kind of see the difference of things. In addition to being easier to edit that footage when you import it, one of the things that I have found is that a lot of those effects that you're putting on the video when you're recording it to a cell phone, those video effects a lot of the times are the things that end up fucking with the frame rate and your footage, because it's trying to process all of this stuff in real time and write it to like a little micro SD card, which doesn't have like great writing speeds all the time. So that's where you'll get these weird drop-offs in your video where you'll see like the frame rate being wild, or sometimes video will skip or audio will skip and things like that. The other thing I've noticed too, if you're using a cell phone to shoot video stuff and you're moving around a lot, moving around while the data is being written on a cell phone sometimes, depending on how extreme it is, can also fuck with things. Granted, these are very minor things that you normally wouldn't notice if it was just like a random bullshit video of whatever. But if you put this video into like a video editing software and you start trying to line it up with other clips that you've shot on other cameras, or maybe even other clips that you've shot from the same camera on the but at different times during the day, you're going to notice discrepancies and it's going to be driving you crazy. You're not going to understand what the fuck is happening. And it's just sort of a limitation that you deal with when using cheap equipment sometimes, is just little issues like that I've come across. And again, this is a Pandora's box of things. The short of it is turn off all the effects on the phone. Make sure the frame rate is the same as any other devices, or make sure that the frame rate isn't changing throughout the day whenever you're shooting different. That's the other thing I've noticed too. Sometimes I'll close out of my camera app and open it back up and it goes back, like the settings default back to how they were before I changed everything. I don't know. Maybe that's just something with my phone. Maybe your phone won't do that, but that's another thing to watch out for too if you're using a phone or some other equipment. Just throughout the day or throughout your shoot, make sure that those settings are staying consistent. Otherwise, you're going to have issues when it comes to editing. Now, it's not impossible to edit. The most recent Normal Creatures video that I did with the skulls, I shot all of the skulls in 24 FPS. But for whatever reason, with me in my living room, my couch, all that stuff was shot in 30 frames per second. It wasn't shot in 24. And I edited it all on a 24 frames per second timeline. The stuff on the couch looks a little goofy. I can tell that it's off because I know what it's supposed to look like. And the reason why that happened is because in my Sony A7, for whatever reason, sometimes when I change the battery, some of the settings will reset like in the memory storage. I don't know if that's an issue with my particular model or the settings that I have, but it's like a decent mid-level camera. It's a lot better than a cell phone, but that even still has little goofy things where, you know, if you're turning equipment on and off or closing out of apps and opening up programs, settings can reset. So throughout the day, definitely make sure to check your frame rate, check your aspect ratios, check your color temperatures and things like that, just to make sure that you're shooting consistent footage throughout the day. That's like huge. I think I've rambled on about that enough. Is there anything else? Wow, I've been yapping at the camera for a long time. This is going to be a long one. I'll tell you what. I think it was a rather short list, but a lot to say in terms of DIY music video making. It's a complex conversation. There's a lot of different things to consider, and I think that that's why a lot of people are intimidated by it. Understandably so. Hopefully this video helped answer some questions that you may have had. Hopefully it might inspire you to take what you have laying around and do something creative. And if you have any other questions about anything specifically that you want to ask me, feel free to reach out and I'll probably answer your DM. Or if you have anything else that you would want me to make a video about regarding this, I'd be happy to. I'll try to see if I think of anything else, in the long run that I think would be helpful. There's one thing that I did want to talk about, but it's kind of its own topic, and that's storyboarding. If you are going to, shoot a video yourselves and you want to do like a story-based video, I have a lot of thoughts in terms of like storyboarding videos to the timeline of your song to make sure that you're not shooting too much story for what you can actually fit into your video, and to make sure that you're actually shooting enough to fill things out. That's a whole nother can of worms, honestly, but I do want to do a video about that sometime soon. That might actually end up being a live stream. That would be a cool live stream. Maybe I'm going to do a live stream on storyboarding. I don't know. Follow me on twitch.tv/BrianSykesHal if you give a fuck about me live streaming. Other than that, turn off this fucking video and go make a video of your own. That's all I'm saying. Take care of yourselves. Take care of the people around you. Peace.